Oh, there's a point to losing something through violence or something else that is out of your control, like the court taking away something from you, or somebody convincing you to give something up, etc. And I'm not saying that there's anything nice about being involved in a war. People in your country die. It could be friends, family, neighbors. I'm not saying that there's anything wonderful about that, but there is a definitiveness to it if it happens and you lose. But imagine a different scenario, more insidious, is that instead of losing something directly or from an act of violence, I mean, it could be getting robbed, it could be getting violated sexually, it could be going to war, it could be because it was taken away from you by someone of authority. But there's a different type of insidiousness to someone just taking it while you're sleeping. Like you wake up and you find out that your stuff is gone because somebody came when you weren't paying attention for a reason that wasn't you just being lazy, and now it's just gone and you don't know who it was. You're never going to find out who it was, and you're never going to find it again. There's just a different type of feeling to something like that. You can almost accept it better when somebody takes it from you and they're rough. Somebody takes it from you and they tell you right to your face, yep, I'm fucking taking this, fuck you. Or when you fight with somebody, in whatever context you want to use the word fight, and you lose, in your head you can say, well, I lost this fight, I'm not happy about it, etc. But I know what happened. I clearly lost this fight. Whether it's your country loses a war, it's you personally, whatever, right? And this is gone, or this has been taken, or this has been changed. But when you just wake up one morning and say your stuff is gone, see, that's why we need a war in this country. This is why so many people are talking about is there going to be some kind of confrontation? Is there? Everybody thinks there is. There's not going to. Everybody thinks there is, though. They think that because their mind wants that. Their mind wants that because at least if they lose, at least if whatever side they're on, whatever side you pick, at least if you lose, you can contextualize that and say, well, I directly lost something. I'm not happy I lost. I'm not happy with what happened afterwards, but at least you understand the process. But that's not what they're doing. That's not what they want. They're just taking it like a sneak thief. And that is how they plan to keep doing it, so that you have no enemy face to put your anger to. You have no one to think about, well, this is my oppressor because we lost this. It's just a nameless, faceless thing. That is what these cameras are, for example. That's getting to the whole thing about cameras, but like these flock cameras and stuff like that. I remember thinking to myself, after talking with somebody who said, yeah, we don't have those red light cameras here in the state that I'm in. And I'm like, oh, that's good, because that's infuriating. Because when you have those things, you know, there are all kinds of reasons that a light can malfunction. Sometimes they have weight sensors that don't work, whatever. And, you know, to think that if they have these things, you're just going to get a ticket if you go through one of these lights, it's kind of maddening, because, you know, you can't ever argue against that. You can go to court and try, but you're never going to win. And just overall, it's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. And thinking about that, I was like, you know, this should be unconstitutional, because also, I'm nobody's fucking puppet or slave. You know, if I decide that I don't want to stay at a fucking light, just for example, you're going to tell me that I have to because Big Brother's always watching. I could go on. Point is, I always hated it when somebody said, yeah, we don't have these here in this state because of our legislature won't pass it. I remember thinking, this is really good, because I don't know how I would deal with that. And then I found out a while later that we actually do have all these cameras. They just don't use them for traffic enforcement at this point. But they're actually already here. And again, I'm just talking about the insidiousness of it, because when you have somebody constantly watching you, there is no way you can ever behave exactly like yourself. Yet, this enemy, and I mean, I do think they're an enemy, but if you don't, just take it for what it's worth. This enemy has no face. It's just a piece of technology that is owned and operated by people that you will never meet, quite possibly never know the names of, and they will use it against you when it suits them. And when they don't care, it won't matter. Which means that you will never know if they are judging you. So you will constantly be guessing in your head, right? This is what I'm talking about. This is that it's like background noise that you can't stop or get rid of. It is just the kind of thing that can drive you mad. And that is the same thing that happens when you have something taken from you, but you do not have a clear, definitive loss. You're incredibly upset because you have hatred, anger, resentment, sadness. You have all this, but you can't put it to anything. So you can't ever heal. You can't ever really properly adapt. You just get filled with angst, and it's constant. That is what is happening in this country. That's why this country needs a war, but they're not going to get one. And to draw a parallel to something else, that is what is happening with this Epstein shit. Because we were given a huge amount of data with no context. And on top of that, if that isn't bad enough, being given all this data with no context, I guess I should explain what that means. When you're talking about traumatic stuff, and though we weren't personally involved, you're talking about traumatic stuff with other people. If you hear about a girl that got raped or a guy that got jumped and beat and murdered, say like you're sitting on a jury, you hear about that in order and you decide how you feel about it as you hear the facts that are presented. What doesn't happen though is you don't hear 300 individual cases at the same time, completely out of sequence, and then a possible list of hundreds of perpetrators at the same time, not linked directly to each person that was affected, and not given any context about what their interaction was. And then on top of all of that, as if that isn't traumatizing enough, half of the information is selectively redacted. Now, I say selectively redacted, what does that mean? Well, the redactions aren't uniform. It's not always names of the victims. People know some of that. It's not always names of the perpetrators. Some are allowed to. It's not always. It's maddening, and it's done that way intentionally. The same way that these cameras are placed everywhere insidiously to just kind of give you a feeling that you have to police yourself constantly, even in the thoughts in your head, because you never know why or when someone might use some type of information against you. This is what they're doing to us, and this is the state of our country right now. And if you can't see that it is one big fucking psyop to try to make you crazy so that you don't know what to do with what you're feeling, then I don't know what more I can do to make you understand it. But that is what's happening. And someday soon, there's going to be an actual leader that comes around to counter this, and they won't be given any chance to gain any popularity. But if we have any kind of luck, something like that will happen. Otherwise, it's just going to be a slow grind all the way to the death of the nation and the death of ourselves as individuals, because people can handle a lot of stress, but constant stress with no way to express it, especially when virtually every form of communication is either propaganda controlled by a small group of people, or a place where people can talk about it, but they are constantly censored with things that they want to say or talk about. That's just a recipe for destroying yourself. So, a real solution needs to present itself.